What's up, guys? Ben Carey here of Capwise. Joining me, Chase Howell, to help us break down week 2 of college football. Chase, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. Pretty good. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing pretty good. This is take number 2, but
Yeah.
hopefully the internet holds up. I know you're a little under the weather, so first of all, appreciate you being here.
Yeah. You have a bad internet. I'm playing a little sick here, so this is not going to be an easy stream, but we're going to power through it.
Yeah, hopefully at the end of the day, hopefully we can give out some solid advice, some insights, and some quality picks. That's always the goal,
and that's
right?
all that matters. That's all that the people come for, some winners.
You know what? That is really what matters. There's all this, there's so much going on in the space, but at the end of the day, if you're giving out bad advice, like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
That's the good and bad with sports betting is your numbers. I mean, you can try to hide, but I think the market will figure out if you're trying to deceive them. So,
with a few exceptions.
Yeah, there's
over the years.
Yeah, few bad exceptions.
Maybe a guy named Dave in Vegas.
Yeah, he goes by David. So first of all, let's talk about last week. We did pretty well with the advice we gave out. Kansas State was solid. I know overall you did pretty well.
Yeah, I had a okay Saturday. I got off to a good start Thursday, Friday, and then I think I was like right at 500 on Saturday. So it was a little up and down. I think it was a tough Saturday, though, just for a lot of people. There were a lot of unexpected games and some teams that just didn't look as good as we thought they were. So I made it through. You got to get through the first week. I think it gets easier as the season goes on and we get settled in and we start knowing these teams a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just hop on into the first one. And of course, we had to give this one a little love, Colorado. But this is actually a really interesting match because you have a powerhouse in Texas A&M coming into this one. It's in a neutral site. It's here in Power Field where usually CU and CSU face off, but they decided temporarily to discontinue that. Going to be playing a little better team than Colorado State. And it's a real good team with a really good defense. But this line has kind of been sitting at 17, and I feel like it's one of those lines that's just not going to move one way or another. But let's start with you. Do you think the Buffs get it done? 17.
All right. Well, I guess I should start it off. You can see the sign behind me. You can see I think I got my shirt on. Yeah. I'm a Buff through and through. So there are some biased takes when it comes to CU games. I'm just not going to deny that. That's just how this ends up happening. But yeah, the more I kind of read into this game, the more I read in this matchup, the more I think that CU can stay in this game, can keep it close. I think they're going to have to put up some points, which is going to be difficult. But I love the matchup of Texas A&M's offense against CU's defense. CU's defense does a great job stopping the run. They did not in the Alamo Bowl. I know a lot of people will bring that up, but that was without Nate Landman and a few other key defensive guys. And I think with all the guys that they have back, they'll be able to slow down Texas A&M's run game, which means what's the freshman quarterback Haynes King going to be able to do? He looked a little up and down in that opener against Kent State. I don't know how much you were able to catch of that one. He threw a few picks, but he made some really good throws, and I was impressed with his ability to get outside of the pocket. So if CU is able to contain him, I think keep him in the pocket, make him make throws, I think CU can kind of keep themselves in this game and end up covering that 17.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Kent State, for most people, isn't a household name, but they do have a pretty good quarterback, Dustin Crum, and he's going to put up 350, 400 yards at times in the MAC, right? But he has seen some defenses that are going to be in the bottom 100. At the same time, I think he only threw for 70 yards.
Yeah.
So this Texas A&M defense is no joke. Having said that, though, Colorado has playmakers, and they have Darren Chiaverini, which I always have faith in him on at least being able to put up a few touchdowns unexpectedly. And when I say unexpectedly, I really mean like from or catching the defense off guard. We see that time and time again with him. Like, he's really good at coming up with a few plays that get the ball moving. And I think for CU, it's all about the momentum in this game. If they get off to an early deficit, it's going to be tough sledding because Texas A&M is going to have momentum. The total is interesting to me because it's going down. It's opened at 42 or 52 at 50. You know what? I actually kind of like the over. And my reasoning behind that is if CU is behind, I actually have faith that they could potentially, get some late scores, moving the ball. But it's going to come down to Brendan Lewis. I don't know. Do you think he's capable of making some throws and, some points up against this Aggie defense?
I think that's the big question mark. It is kind of the X factor in this game. I think it's important to note he grew up a Texas A&M fan. He watched a bunch of the games growing up.
Ooh.
They did not offer him. So obviously it's a little bit of a chip on the shoulder
I like that
for him in this game. But I just don't know. They're going to have to establish the run, and they're going to have to get their big plays, I think, through the run game. Can they get a few explosive plays through the pass? Can Darren Cheverini dial something up? We'll see. I think people have to keep an eye on the status of Miles Jones. He's an NFL cornerback that's on Texas A&M. I think he's like kind of in the questionable realm if college football had injury status. So we'll see if he ends up playing, because I think if he doesn't play, their corners can be very vulnerable, and CU will be able to hit a couple big plays over the top. But yeah, what are we going to get out of Brendan Lewis? We didn't really see much in week one. They kept that offense really vanilla. They didn't try to make him make any big throws. And he didn't really have to, but he did a really good job of taking care of the football, which I thought was a really good sign. And I don't know. We saw him make big plays against Texas, and we didn't see anything against UNC, which kind of scares me a little bit.
Yeah, and I try to give him the benefit of the doubt in that, to say like, hey, maybe that was just the game plan. But at the same time, I think he missed a few open guys. Not only like his target, I think one, he overthrew a guy, but also he had, I think there were one or two where there was someone just like literally streaking over the middle of the field that he didn't see. So it does worry me a little bit, because if he misses those opportunities on Saturday, there's no way that the Buffs cover in this one. So having said all that, what's your best play, a lean, or like, do you actually have anything official in this one?
It's hard for me to make official picks when we're talking about CU football, but I do think I'm leaning towards plus 17. I just got to take the points. I would, if I was handicapping the game, I would think it'd be around 14-15 in my opinion.
I think it's
so I think 17's enough.
I think plus 17's a good value. I'm leaning plus 17 and the over. I typically don't like to be in a position where the number's moving the other way midweek and I'm on the other side, but something tells me that CU is going to be able to put up some points here. And I really think that if they can score 20, 21, I think this goes over. I really do. So that could be a key number to watch for.
One thing about CU's offense, and we talked a little bit about Kent State's quarterback being good and not being able to do anything in that game, they actually ran the ball really well. They averaged over 5 yards per carry, and their starting running back averaged over like 9 yards per carry in that game. So if CU is able to do something like that, then I definitely think they'll be able to stay in the game, especially if they can control the ball and hold on to the ball for longer.
Yeah, I think a few long rushes from the Buffs is definitely going to have to be within the game plan.
And that was one thing that they looked pretty good against UNC. I thought all three of the top running backs looked good.
They really did. So yeah, I think we don't necessarily need for Brendan Lewis to put up 300 yards, but I think you'll have to make a few big plays in this one. So let's move on to the second game, Missouri, Kentucky. I know this is one, Chase, that you wanted to discuss. The Wildcats at home +5, totals at 56.5. What do you like in this one?
This is my favorite play of the week. I'll actually watch both these games during the first week because I really liked Central Michigan. I have the over on Central Michigan season total, and I think that is a really good football team. So I was watching them play Mizzou. I didn't take that game. The line was right around 14, and I believe it finished around there. I think maybe Mizzou might have covered by a few points. But I watched both these games both these teams last week, and I was really, really impressed with Kentucky. I think Will Levis is a really good quarterback, actually, and I think Penn State's going to wish that they had him over the guy that they have at Penn State right now. So he threw 18 for 26, 367 yards and 4 touchdowns. Of course, this is against Louisiana Monroe, so how much stock can you really put into that? Louisiana Monroe is probably going to be one of the worst college football teams in America this year. But they have a weapon one, Dale Robinson, who came from Nebraska, who's really, really impressive to watch. He's like a running back, wide receiver, kind of hybrid, and he's really hard to stop. He had a great game in the opener against Monroe. And on the defensive side, Kentucky held Monroe to 87 yards, and they scored a touchdown on their first drive and didn't score one after that. So I just think Kentucky's a really good all-around football team, and I'm not really convinced with Mizzou. You also got to throw in that Kentucky's at home in this game. And the game's going to be a night game. They're expecting a sellout crowd. It's going to be a tough environment for Mizzou to play in, an SEC matchup, and I just don't think -5 is enough points in this game.
Yeah, that really solid points. Kentucky's always an interesting team for me because there's always, they kind of remind me of Tennessee as of late, where there's a lot of big expectations, but then you always have the side. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's the talking heads of the SEC that they're like, well, they're not a Georgia, so what, why are we even discussing them, right? But at the end of the day, we're just trying to find value in the numbers. So,
but they haven't had a quarterback like this in a while.
They haven't. They really haven't. I mean, we would have to. I mean, it's been a few years since I think about
a top quarterback at Kentucky. I can't even think of a really good one off the top of my head.
Yeah. We'll put it this way. There wasn't any quarterback talent going into the draft. So, anything with the total on this one?
I looked at it. I think the number's pretty good to me. I could see both teams being able to score here, but I like Kentucky's defense. Mizzou wants to run the football. That's one of the things that they are going to try to do. And Kentucky's front, really their defensive line, those 4 guys are probably their best players on the defensive side of the ball. So I just think Mizzou's going to struggle to establish offense. They got outgained in Central Michigan in that game. Actually, I think it was 475 to 4, something in the 400s for Mizzou as well, but they got outgained in that game.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to look into that one. I make good points. And you said it's a primetime game for them, right?
Primetime at home. Yep. Sellout crowd. I love taking the home team in those types of games.
Definitely. And if we saw anything last week, there definitely was some home field advantage, more so than we saw in 2020. So let's talk about Vanderbilt, Colorado State for the next matchup. 2 reasons why we're talking about this one. Well, first of all, Chase and I are both Colorado natives. And 2, I'm going to beat this game, actually. My fiance went to Colorado State.
I'm sorry. Oh, poor Ben.
Yeah, well,
you have to attend this game and actually watch this football game?
Well, of course I'm going to have some money on it, right? But when I agreed to go like a month ago, and then watching CSU last week, I'm like, oh God, I agreed to go next week. So I'll be at this one. If we thought Colorado State was bad, I think Vanderbilt is even worse. They lost to East Tennessee State, and I know both scores, I guess, between Colorado State's opponent and Vanderbilt's opponent were somewhat similar, but San Diego State or South Dakota State's actually a good team. I don't think Eastern Tennessee State is actually that good, and they got killed by them. They were dominated, and Vanderbilt headed into this game. I just don't see them being anywhere close to motivated. It's high altitude. It's a late game. I mean, for them, that the kickoff's basically 10 p.m. their time, which is something 9
p.m. They're on Central. I was just in Nashville this past week. Yeah.
Oh, they are. Damn. I wish it was 10, but still 9. It's a late game. With travel and everything, this is not a good spot for Vanderbilt. But at the same time, you could make the case that if Vanderbilt's looking at their next 10 games, this is one of the only ones they probably have anywhere close to a chance to win. Maybe they have another FCS school. I didn't look, but they're going to have the gauntlet with the SEC conference schedule. So I got this number pretty early with Circa. I think it was 2.5, 3. So I got a really good number here, but 7 now it's probably where it should be. But even then, Colorado State's going to have McBride back on the D line. It sounds like that's Trey McBride's brother. I'm spacing his first name. Is it Troy?
It's yeah, that sounds right.
Troy, yeah. He's most likely going to play in this one, and I think another DB is going to be back for them. So they did have a little bit of some holes in their lineup last week, but they should be more healthy in this one. But yeah, I still lean Colorado State and the under in this one. That would be my take on this one. But I'm curious your thoughts.
Well, I guess since you're bringing it up, I love the under as well. That's pretty much my biggest takeaway from breaking down this game. I don't think, and I know I fully think betting on CSU, when if you could have gotten it at 2 or 1 or 3 right off the open, probably made sense. But to be up a touchdown right now, I don't know if I'm laying 7 points with CSU right now, especially after watching them last week. Of course, Vanderbilt is no good, but laying 7 just seems like a lot. Funny you bring up Circa as well. I saw the Circa guys are tweeting about this game and just how many people came in and bet on CSU. He said there were just tons of tickets that came in on the Rams.
Yeah, like I checked because I think they're opening up now at noon our time, and it was like 12:30, and it was already at like 3.5, and I was like, yeah. So actually, I got it at 3.5. That's what I got at. So fortunately, not under 3, but I still feel pretty good because it's going to be lower scoring. I think anything under 6, I would have played it to. 7's just tough now because, I mean, like let's remember Colorado State looked god awful as well. So
right.
They have a lot to work on. I wonder if that backup's going to get some time, to be honest, because Centeo just looked exactly like he did last season. And for Colorado State fans, that was just the worst case scenario for them to see.
Yeah, but what really worries me about CSU is they only averaged around like 2 yards per carry against South Dakota State. So if you don't have a good quarterback and you don't have a good running back, how are you going to be able to move the football at all? And that's why I like the under. I think Vanderbilt's defense might not be that good, but I think they're good enough to be able to hold CSU into the 20s, low 20s, and maybe even under 20. And I think Vanderbilt's offense is just terrible. So no matter how bad CSU's defense is, Vanderbilt won't be able to move the ball either. This game is just it's a battle of who could possibly be shittier. Yeah. I wrote down in my notes, if you actually watch this game, you're more of a degenerate than me, which is saying something. Ben has to go to the game because of wife duties, but I just would not want to watch this football game. I'm gonna bet the under. I actually already played the under 51.5. I took it on points bet. So
I think those are the best games where you find some value, but they're going to be miserable to watch. And you're just like, well, I'm going to tune into something else. And it's a good segue because this next game we're talking about is going to be on at the same time. And I think this will be a better affair. There also will be a few others on late at night, Pac-12 after dark. I think Hawaii, Oregon State's on.
Yeah, that's a
Stanford. Does Stanford play? Or is that like
that's USC? I think that's a little earlier.
A little earlier. Yeah, but there'll be a few other games on. But one of them is San Diego State and Arizona. So Arizona, you know what? It was funny because I was on BYU, and I remember that one of the things you said, I kind of like Jeff Fish. And you know what? You got those guys playing in the second half.
Yeah.
That could have been one of those games where BYU won the half by 14 points, but I think that safety kind of fueled them a little bit, and then they had a little bit of momentum in that one. So not a bad outing by them. They still don't have the talent, I would say, as other teams in the Pac-12, but San Diego State, they looked all right. I mean, they played a bad New Mexico State team, but they did what they typically do, right? They control the ball and they play good defense. So I mean, this line let me pull it up, is that I think it's at 1.5. I think did it open at -2.5 for Arizona? I
I
forget.
think San Diego State opened as the favorite. That line has been moving
Okay.
back and forth, and then settled.
That's what it was. Yeah. So I guess some action coming in on Arizona.
Mhm.
Let's talk about that. And I mean, are you with the Wildcats and Jeb, or gonna go with the Aztecs?
Yeah. So last week, I joined you. I tailed you. I just before that
Sorry.
game, I couldn't stop thinking about how terrible Arizona was last year, and just the fact that they couldn't keep themselves in any game. And obviously BYU was really good last year, so that made it easier to bet. But I was impressed with Arizona for a moment there. I think it was early in the fourth quarter. They were putting together a few different drives. I was like, oh my god, they might actually win this game.
Yeah.
Um,
What a
and,
shock.
which would have been really shocking. I was impressed with the way that they played for Jed Fish, and I was also impressed with them offensively. They could really throw the football. I think with their quarterback, Gunnar Cruz, he threw for 336 yards, 34 for 45. He did throw an interception, a really dumb interception that probably put them out of the game in the fourth quarter there. But I was impressed with the way that they were able to throw the football. They returned all of their wide receivers, and they did a good job doing that. On the other side, you got a San Diego State team that a lot of people had high hopes for this season. People probably still have high hopes for them, but they were down 10-0 to New Mexico State at halftime last week. They ended up coming back, and I think they ended up covering that game as
Yeah.
well. It was close, but yeah, they were down 10-0, which was scaring those bettors.
Yeah, that's right. New Mexico State's a team that I think the market was just naturally down on. I probably should. They can play a little bit, and then finally the Aztecs turned it around. But it is important to know because maybe a little bit of a misleading score, but sometimes it's hard to say is that misleading because sometimes teams just get off to a slow start, but they got the job done. Like I think Rice, Arkansas was another example of that where Arkansas, I think, scored 3, maybe even 4 touchdowns in that fourth quarter, and people were like, "Well, that's a little bit of a misleading final score." But at the same time, I mean, they did put it together, and they looked really good in the fourth quarter. So, you just have to take everything and kind of put it together when you're
Especially week
handicapping.
one, I think. I think there are misleading scores after week one, but if it takes a while for a team to settle in week one, it's a little bit different.
Absolutely, no, I agree. This under is interesting to me because Arizona, yeah, like you said, they did look decent offensively, but at the same time, yeah, this is going to be lean for me. I'm not going to bet this, but I do feel like this could be one of those slower pace type games, especially if the Aztecs can control the time of possession.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. Your last point there. Can the Aztecs control time? They're going to want to run the football. I think Greg Bell's one of the better G5 running backs in the country. And I don't really like San Diego State's quarterback that much. He's a good game manager, but I don't think he can make the big throws if you needed him to make um, big throws. So San Diego State's going to have to hold on the ball. They're going to have to control possession this entire game. And if they're able to do that, I could see that under coming through, but it's a low number. And if San Diego State is able to run the ball really well, which I do think they can kind of gash this Arizona defense, they'll be able to put up some points. And I think Arizona's ability to throw the football makes it really difficult to have an under, especially late in that game,
Yeah,
if they're throwing it a bunch in the fourth quarter.
that's scary because it could be one of those games where it's like 14, 17 headed into the fourth, and all of a sudden you just get touchdown back to back to back.
Yeah, or even if San Diego State has a big lead, it's like 24-10, 27-10 or
Yeah,
something, and Arizona has to throw the ball a bunch.
absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I think I'm not going to end up playing this one, but it is an interesting matchup because from a sharp perspective and some of the bigger, more smarter bettors, I've seen a little bit of split here. Because like we said, Arizona. Some people are like, well, hey, they kind of exceeded expectations, but it was just one game, right?
Right,
And how good is BYU even, right? Like
right.
they look decent. Their quarterback, he played well, and I think that was like some of their concern. But I don't know. It's going to be a game where we really find out what Arizona's made of, because again, I think they were last picked last in the Pac-12.
Oh
by
yeah,
almost
a
everyone. So
lot of people are picking them to not win a game this year.
yeah, yeah.
But I
So
think kind of to that point though, if you went in blind last week, you didn't do any research on any teams in college football, and you just watched San Diego State and Arizona, you might think that Arizona was the better football team last week.
I agree. Yeah, I do agree. Someone said that BYU may get better, that Arizona may not. Yeah, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fair. Just kind of. But at the same time, I mean, they have a first-year head coach, so you can make that argument too. I
Right.
think better. You know, are we saying wins and losses? Well, yeah, because Arizona is going to have a gauntlet of a Pac-12 conference schedule, so we'll have to see if they can muster up some wins.
You want to talk about BYU Utah since we brought up
Yeah, we
BYU?
can.
That's an
We can
interesting
talk.
game.
I haven't discussed that all week, so yeah, let's talk about that one before we end things. 7. It's up to 7 now.
Yeah, it's at 7, which I think is a little on the high end for Utah. But I'm definitely not sold on BYU after watching that game last week. And I think Charlie Brewer's a really good quarterback. I was impressed with him at Baylor, and I thought he had a pretty good debut with Utah last week. So I wouldn't be surprised if Utah is able to settle into this game and end up covering that 7. I don't know if I'm going to play it, but I think I'm leaning Utah.
So I actually lean BYU, but it's not very much of a strong lean. The only thing with me is that I saw enough out of their quarterback that I think they can keep it close. But at the same time, I do have to remember that Utah didn't cover last week against Weber State, but at the same time, it was a little misleading. There was a kickoff return for a touchdown, which, I mean, I think they started the game off 10-0, maybe, or maybe it was a 7-0, and there was a lightning delay. So it was kind of a funky game. They still put up a lot of points. It was just a huge spread, right? But yeah, I mean, it's Charlie Brewer, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, from Baylor.
From Baylor.
Yeah, he's a guy who I watched a lot the last few years when he was at Baylor, and he's decent. He's a smart quarterback. So I think if they can control and limit turnovers in this one, they'll be in a good position to cover this. I think there was a stat I saw that teams in this rivalry don't cover well at home, which is interesting.
Huh.
I think it could just be the market overreacting to a home team, right? I mean, you'll see this with like Iowa State at times in that rivalry. Not so much Colorado State because it's always a neutral site, right? But sometimes the home field advantage maybe is more than it should be. But I think seven's a decent number. It's probably where it needs to be. So
yeah, I wonder how often you had a 7-point underdog at home though. This game's in Provo.
It is,
which as a 7-point dog and a game that tends to be pretty close over the years. I don't have that in front of me, but I'm just kind of going off of memory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the more I kind of think about this game, I think Utah's the more talented team, but I think BYU can kind of stay in this game and maybe keep it under 1 score.
Yeah. What's I guess one other pick you could give out in a game we haven't discussed? I know you had the Missouri Kentucky was one of your better plays, but
that's my favorite play. Yeah, have you guys discussed much Texas Arkansas? It's not that I have a pick, but I kind of wanted to discuss this game.
A little bit. Yeah, that's fine to bring it up because I think it's going to be a really fun game to watch, and a lot of people are going to have action on it. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, you kind of mentioned it. You talked about Arkansas not really getting going until the fourth quarter. Texas was kind of in the same boat. I think people forgetting that Louisiana was in that game for a long time, and even deep into the third quarter, I believe. And then Texas started to get going and ended up crushing them in the fourth quarter, which was the same as Arkansas. But I think as a 7-point underdog at home, and I think this Arkansas crowd's going to be riled up. They love their new head coach, Sam Pittman. They think he's the guy that's going to bring them back. I don't know to the glory land, but at least become a consistent team that can be getting to bowl games in the SEC. And so I think you have a riled up fan base that is excited about their team and the direction it's going. Bringing in a Texas team that they're probably excited is going to join the conference. I think that's going to be a very intense environment.
Good point.
And I'm leaning to Arkansas, but I wanted to kind of discuss this game because I haven't been able to discuss it with too many people.
No, I do like Arkansas quite a bit. I think 7 is a great number, and I honestly think they could win this outright. I really do, because Texas, in my eyes, yeah, it was a good win, but I think that if you look at what happened in that game, the run game kind of carried them, which is fine, right? We can't take that away, but I still want to see Hudson Card like really have a game, right? He hasn't done that yet. And that's not to say he won't do it in this one, but I think that's enough for me to say, well, I'm pulling up the Arkansas money line right now. I'm curious the actual number, but I think that's enough for me to say, hey, let's take a look at the money line here.
Yeah,
I'm showing plus 230 up from plus 150. I mean, in my eyes.
And in a way, Sarkey's going to need a signature win and to be able to kind of get this program going in the right direction again. But it's been hard for these Texas teams to find consistency. They had a nice win last week, but the Texas program has not been able to string together multiple really good wins in a row.
Yeah, and you're coming on the road. It's an SEC. It's going to be a hostile environment, and I really think Arkansas has a good shot in this one. And honestly, I think that if they load the box a little bit and, avoid a situation where they're outnumbered, they'll be all right in this one, because Hudson Card's going to have to make some throws.
Right.
He hasn't done that yet. So, I think I'm willing to – I haven't bet it yet, but I wanted to wait because the number kept going up. So I was like, hey, I mean – it was plus 150, it's up to plus 230, I'm showing. So I might shop around a little bit. I mean, that's a pretty good number. Anything over plus 200, I think, is a good number. Sometimes I like to play the spread for the underdog, and then also the money line too, just a little way to diversify, because I think it's the worst, right? When you're here's a prime example. I was on the Cowboys last night and I bet the money line.
Mm-hmm.
And if I just had money line, you'd be feeling terrible. You're just like,
right.
I had a good read. I was, in my eyes, I think the Cowboys win that game based on what happened like 9 out of 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that conceptually facing Tom Brady, they would win 9 out of 8 times, but based on the turnovers, all that happened, missed field goals that they would typically make. So back to my point, if you have the spread, you're like, okay, at least I covered my ass there, right?
Right. Well, yeah, but then you end up getting your heart broken when Tom Brady drives down the field and gets the field goal if you have money.
It
was nice to have plus 10 and not have to worry about what happened late in that game.
I wonder how Anelio is feeling, because it's like the Cowboys look good. Mm-hmm. And you have to be feeling good, but at the end of the day, you're still 0-1.
Yeah, you lost.
But
I texted him after the game. We were talking about the spread because I was all over the spread as well. So I know we were both happy about that pick, just because all the people that were on Tampa Bay, I love being on the other side of those.
Oh yeah, totally. It was like betting against Tom Brady doesn't make you much money. I'm like, well, the market knows that, so that's part of it too.
And historically in season openers, though, I think it does. I think Tom Brady in season openers.
Yeah, I know last year against the Saints, he didn't look great either.
Mm-hmm.
But, that was a fun one. Yeah, and we have NFL Sunday. I'm pumped for that.
Yeah,
are the Broncos going to cover? Like, what are they going to win? Like, I don't even know.
I don't know. I'm not a good. You won't see me on these shows breaking down NFL games because I'm just not a good NFL bettor, and I'm going to go with kind of the strategy this season of fading the public. I think I'm going to keep going where we have games like Bucks Cowboys and the public is on a huge side. I think those are the good opportunities in NFL. But I'm not a guy that can break down games and find the right side just by looking at it. I think that's much easier to do in college football.
Yeah, and especially when you have a line move, right? Like catching 9.5 on Cowboys when it was at times 6.5. You're like,
love it. I love it. Yeah.
I think the Broncos, for me, I don't have a lot of expectations for them. So I really don't know what to expect even on Sunday against the Giants. I don't know.
Back to that Arkansas-Texas game to get back on college football. I did want to mention that I'm thinking about playing the under in that game. It's already moved, though, a couple points. I think it opened 58, and it's down like 56.5. But that's a game I think if Arkansas wants to stay in that game, I think it's going to have to be low scoring.
Yeah, I totally agree. Because if Texas does get things rolling, then that's not a spot Arkansas wants to be in. Not to say they don't have a high-powered offense, but I think you just want to limit points, especially when you're a dog. I think that's pretty much the case for most sports. Because that just opens up more variance, and I think you want to keep it a closer game. Yeah, I think I'm gonna fire up this Arkansas money line. It just looks good, feels good. And if Texas comes out and wins by 14, we'll give them a pat on the back. But I'm not gonna let one game just completely sway my decision on what I think of Texas right now.
Are you going to pronounce Texas is back if they cover against Arkansas on the road?
No. So someone asked me, they're like, "What does Texas have to do to be back?" And I said, "They got to beat Oklahoma."
Yeah.
So,
which did they did that? Did they do it recently, or they're in a game
2 years ago? But
but they lost a bunch of other games.
Yeah, I know they came out and won that one, and then I think they lost to, I forget. They had someone, maybe it's Kansas State or something. It's like 2 years ago. But yeah, they have Rice following week, Texas Tech, TCU, and then Oklahoma. So if they win this game, those next 3 games are pretty winnable. I mean, they could be coming into a situation where they're 6-0.
Is that game at TCU or at home?
It's at TCU, so that could be
a tough game.
That could be a tough one. We won't just chalk a win up there.
I like the TCU team, actually. I think people are sleeping on TCU a little bit in the Big 12.
Who does TCU have this week?
Cal. And that line has moved a couple points, but I still kind of like TCU at minus 11.5. I don't think Cal's a good football team at all.
No, I don't think they're good either.
Poor Wilcox. A lot of people thought he was going to turn Cal around, and they're just not.
Yeah.
I don't think that program's
on this one. So this is a line that I thought would move, and it didn't. So I'm like, oh, shit. I thought Oregon State at minus 11 was a good value, but it hasn't moved. So now I'm kind of like, am I a little high on Oregon State, or I'm kind of low on Hawaii, but I don't know. I think Oregon State can win by 2 touchdowns.
Right. Yeah. Where is that game? Is that in Corvallis?
It's in Corvallis.
9 p.m.
One of the last games of the day.
9 p.m. start in Corvallis. That's kind of cool. A traditional Hawaii late night game, but it's not. It's on the road.
Late night. Yeah. This is.
We'll see. They haven't announced
before the NFL slate starts.
They haven't announced the starting quarterback yet, but I think everybody thinks it's going to be Chance Nolan. He came in for Sam in that second half, and I looked pretty good for him.
Yeah.
In that game, and so I kind of like Oregon State in this spot. Hawaii actually looked good in the first half last week. I ended up betting that game for the fun, especially because we were talking about Big Sky teams, and you had Portland State, and Hawaii was scaring me early on in that game, and then Portland State came back and actually covered it pretty easily.
The Big Sky.
I think they lost 14 in a 26.5 spread.
So
Hawaii, they can be okay, but I do kind of like that Oregon State team. They hung in there. In that game last week against Purdue. They probably could have covered it. I thought I was on the right side in that game, having Oregon State. And I think they are going to be able to cover the 11 at home in a late night game this week.
Yeah, and again, I got it in early. I felt good because I honestly thought that line was going to move up to like 13, but maybe the quarterback decision is kind of holding that moving. But we'll see.
Maybe I feel too good about Neuer just because of the CU bias, but I feel like whatever quarterback Chance Nolan or Sam Neuer starts in that game will be fine. Purdue changed their defensive coordinator, and so they didn't really know what scheme they were going to be getting in that game, and I think that could be a reason for Neuer's slow start.
Yeah, and I did have Purdue last game, so
we're on opposite sides there, Ben.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Cool, man. Well, best of luck to your bets.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to this week. And week 2 has always been pretty good for me, just because I've been, for the most part, been able to identify overreaction spots and knock on wood. But yeah, let's hope that continues.
Any overreaction spots you like? I know the big one is probably Michigan, Washington.
Michigan, Washington's definitely one of them. And another thing, well, actually, one more overreaction spot. The other one, what was it? I had it. I'll have to look. I have a list of a few that I know two of them I actually bet. But one other thing I just wanted to mention real quick is there will be a lot of wind. We were talking about that in the Discord out in the Midwest. So just definitely take a look at some of those. You know, Michigan's going to have some wind. Iowa State, I think Bowling Green, they're going to have some wind. Northern Illinois, Wyoming, that could be a really low scoring game. It could be like a 13-10 game. So yeah, just take a look.
I kind of like Northern Illinois in that game. Mostly because I was on Georgia Tech last week, and so
especially if you can get that 7. That's a pretty good number, I would say.
I think taking the touchdown dog there, especially Northern Illinois, I think is at home there. So 7-point dog at home. We like a lot of 7-point dogs at home this week. There's a few of them.
Yeah. All right, man. I appreciate it. Hoping we can have you next week if you're available. Get some sleep, get that throw taken care of. You might have to just take some NyQuil and like fall asleep at I guess there's
too many good games on tonight.
Yeah, never mind.
I need a nap right now, and then I'll get up for the games tonight.
Get some sleep, knock yourself out, wake up, and then you can watch some Kansas Coastal Carolina.
There we go.
All right, man. I'll see you later.
All right, thanks.